The C4 Generation Corvette was built from 1984 through 1996. Now that's a 13 model year run, which is a pretty long period of time in the auto industry. And during that time, it went through a lot of major changes. Engines, transmissions, exterior changes, interior changes, and could be a little overwhelming to a potential buyer as to everything that changed with each model year. Well, in this video, I'm going to break down all those major changes that took place from 1984 through 1996. So stick around. Now, before I begin, I have to throw a couple of disclaimers out there. The first is I'm not going to cover every single detail of the C4 Generation Corvette, because if I did, the video would be 8 hours long and nobody'd want to watch it. And then the second disclaimer I have to add is I'm going to mention in passing, but I'm not going to give a lot of details about any of the special editions of the C4 generation. Things like the ZR1, the 40th Anniversary Edition, the Indy Pace Car Edition, the 96 Grand Sport and Collector's Edition. If you are looking for specific details on those models, there is another YouTuber out there called Retro Cars Forever, and he has a video, which I'll put a link in the description below, where he covers the special editions in detail. So, with those two disclaimers out of the way, let's begin with the very first year, 1984. The C4 generation was a complete redesign compared to the C3. Handling characteristics were a top priority for Chevrolet. They had originally planned to introduce the C4 Corvette in 1983, but production delays meant the first cars were not sold until March of '83. Therefore, Chevy decided to call it an '84 model. The base price was $21,800. This meant the '84 would have a very long production run. A total of 51,457 were sold, all of them coupes. They were powered by the 5.7-liter L83 Crossfire V8 engine. This was a carryover from the last year of the C3 generation in 1982. It made 205 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque. These were the only 2 years this engine would be used due to its reputation of being unreliable and difficult to maintain. Transmission choices were either the 700R4 4-speed automatic or the Doug Nash 4+3 manual transmission. Only 6,443 manuals were produced in '84. In 2020, TheDrive.com published a story about this transmission, and they described it this way. The Doug Nash 4+3 was a 4-speed manual with an automatic overdrive on the top 3 gears. Needless to say, this hack job of a transmission was anything but a tight and sporty manual. Its 2-speed overdrive was supposed to engage on its own when the driver eased off the throttle in a higher gear, with a system on-off switch in the cabin. It worked in theory, but the clunky 4+3 was immediately plagued by durability and reliability issues. This would be the only manual transmission offered in the '84 through '88 model years. The dashboard is all digital. There was no analog option. The digital dash would carry on virtually unchanged from '84 through '89. It came with 16-inch wheels front and back. Only this turbine-style wheel was offered. If you ordered the Z51 Performance Handling Package, the rears were 1 inch wider than the standard wheels. They all came with a body-colored removable roof panel, but it requires a special tool that is mounted in the center glove box to remove the 4 bolts, 1 on each corner. There was a transparent roof panel option. Base models came with cloth seats. Leather seats were an option chosen by about 80% of 1984 buyers. There were 14 color choices in '84, including 3 that were two-tone, the most popular of which was bright red, purchased by almost 13,000 buyers. Performance is pretty poor by today's standards. The car would do 0 to 60 in 7.9 seconds, would run the quarter mile in 15.8 at 89 miles per hour, and it had a top speed of 138 miles per hour. In 1985, production drops to 39,729 cars, all of them coupes. The big change for '85 would be the L98 Tune Port Injected V8. This engine would carry on through the 1990 model year. It made 230 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. It also had an 11% better fuel economy than the '84. The '84s received a lot of criticism for the harsh ride, so for '85 Chevy softened the springs in both the Z51 and non-Z51 equipped cars. During this model year, Chevy moved the overdrive button for the Doug Nash 4+3 manual transmission from a console button to the gear shift knob to make it easier to use. The optional transparent roof panel came with a stronger sun screening to reduce the cabin temperatures during hot summer months. The change to the L98 engine means that the 1985 Corvette performed better than its predecessor. It would now do 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds, the quarter mile in 14.1 seconds at 97 miles an hour, and the top speed increased to 150 miles per hour. 1986 brought the return of the Corvette convertible. Production in 86 fell to a total of 35,109 units, of which 7,315 were convertibles. 86 would also mark the year that the Corvette convertible paced the Indy 500. While technically all 86 convertibles came with the Indy 500 decal package, the actual pace cars were only in yellow. All other convertibles, no matter the color, had the decals either installed by the dealership or the customer themselves, or in many cases, not at all. Halfway through the 86 model year, Chevy changed the L98 motor from cast iron heads to aluminum heads. This increased the horsepower from 230 to 235. 86 also marked the year that ABS brakes became standard on all Corvettes. Federal law required that all vehicles have a third brake light, so this was added for 86 as well. This year also introduced a new vehicle anti-theft system called VATS. It meant that the key had a chip or pellet embedded in it that was read by the cylinder lock when you put it in. And the transparent roof panel was now available in two colors, blue or bronze. In 1987, production drops again to a total of 30,632 units, of which 10,625 were convertibles. The L98 engine was upgraded with roller valve lifters that increased horsepower from 235 to 240. 87 was the first year that the Callaway twin-turbo option was offered. This option would be offered through 1991. Center sections of the wheels and the radial slots were changed from black to gray. For 1988, production drops yet again, this time to 22,789 units, of which 7,407 were convertibles. Horsepower remains the same except for the 4,497 coupes that came with the optional performance rear axle that had a ratio of 3.07 to 1. They had a slightly less restrictive exhaust system, so horsepower therefore increased from 240 to 245. A lot of underlying updates were done in 88, things you can't see, like new headlight motors, windshield wiper motors, new seat track wiring, and switches. Major updates to the suspension were also done in 88. This included steering knuckles, upper and lower control arms, springs, and shock absorbers, just to name a few. The standard 16-inch wheel in 88 is the Razor design, with the single cutout, while the Z51 equipped models got the upgraded 17-inch wheels, called the Salad Shooter or two cutout style. There was a 35th anniversary model in 88 that was all white. Chevy sold 2,050 of them. Door sills in 88 and later became carpeted instead of just plastic. In 1989, production increased to 26,412, of which 9,749 were convertibles. The big news for 89 was the introduction of the ZF 6-speed manual transmission that was sourced from Germany. While an improvement over the Doug Nash 4+3 transmission, it still had a second and third gear lockout if you were going too slowly, so it would make you shift from first to fourth. It did not take long before a way was found, of course, to disable this feature. FX3's selective ride and handling was introduced as an option this year. The control dial was just in front of the center glove box for switching your suspension settings between Tour, Sport, and Performance. The 17-inch Salad Shooter wheels that were an option in 88 became standard on all 89s. A low tire pressure warning system becomes an option in 89, a product that, shall we say, is a bit temperamental. Seats were redesigned for 89, still available as cloth, leather, or sport leather. Convertible buyers had two new options to choose from, a rear luggage rack and a removable hardtop that was a $1,995 option. In 1990, production was 23,646, of which 7,630 were convertibles. The high-performance CR1 model was introduced in 1990. The $27,016 option was powered by the LT5 375 horsepower V8 engine designed by Lotus and Chevrolet, but manufactured by Mercury Marine in Oklahoma. It would be offered as an option through the 95 model year. A few L98 engine modifications created another 5 horsepower bump in power from 240 to 245, except for the coupes with the 3.07 to 1 or 3.33 to 1 rear axle ratios. They increased from 245 to 250 horsepower. An engine oil life monitoring system was introduced. 2 new 200-watt Delco Bose stereo systems were introduced. The top-of-the-line model included the CD player. The entire dash had been redesigned. The instrument panel goes with a hybrid analog and digital dash. A new steering wheel was introduced that included a driver's side airbag. The passenger side got a glove box, replacing the big crash pad that people had nicknamed the bread box. The salad shooter wheels are now missing the center cap that covered the lug nuts from earlier models. 1991 production was 20,639, of which 5,672 were convertibles. The rear bumper was redesigned to a convex design compared to the older concave design. This new convex design was carried over from the 1990 ZR1. The brake lights got a slight update and are more square than the older round design. Front end was also redesigned with wraparound parking cornering fog lamps. A third brake light is integrated into the rear bumper now for all models. Painted moldings now go all around the car, no longer that black molding line that was seen on earlier models. A power delay system was added for the power windows and stereo, allowing them to continue to operate when you turn the car off. When you open the doors, they would turn off, or after 15 minutes, whichever came first. A sensor using an oil pan float was added, so the driver information system could alert you when your oil level was low. The lower front fender panel, just behind the front wheels, also gets a redesign. And a new wheel design is introduced referred to as the saw blades. 1992, production was 20,479, of which 5,875 were convertibles. The big news for 92 was the introduction of the LT1 V8, making 300 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque. All cars come with Mobil 1 synthetic oil, and Chevy suggested that all customers continue to use this oil going forward. A traction control system was standard on all models. It's called ASR, or Accelerated Slip Regulation System. Improved weather seals and additional insulation was added to the door panels and transmission tunnel to reduce road noise. Exhaust tips in 92 are rectangular, whereas earlier models are dual circular exhaust tips. Interior colors were updated to all black instead of the gray painted finish of things like the headlight controls or the door panel components. 1993, production was 21,590, of which 5,692 were convertibles. 6,749 were built as 40th anniversary Corvettes, all of them in ruby red metallic with ruby red seats. All 93 models have the 40th in the headrests. Minor engine modifications are made to the LT1 to make it quieter and also bump the torque from 330 pound-feet to 340. 93 also brings the first passive keyless entry system to the Corvette. When activated, the door will unlock when the key fob is close enough, interior lights would come on, and the anti-theft system would turn off. Wheels stay the same style, but now come in a machine finish instead of the gray painted finish of the 91 and 92. This new wheel remained standard through the end of the C4 production in 1996. 1994, production was 23,330, of which 5,346 were convertibles. The 4-speed automatic transmission is updated to the 4L60E, which was pretty much an electronically controlled version of the 700R4. A new ignition system reduces start times, especially in colder weather. A new fuel injection system improves the engine's responsiveness, its idle quality, and drivability. The safety interlock system was added to the transmission. This now requires the driver to press the brake pedal in order to shift the transmission out of park. The glove box disappears for a passenger side airbag. Door panels are redesigned to include compartments to replace that now missing glove box. Door panels are now all plastic. Earlier years had carpet on the lower half. Minor change was done to the dash design. Look at the swoop down towards the passenger side, you'll notice the difference. Driver's power window now has an express down feature. Steering wheel is redesigned to a 2-spoke design with center airbag. Tire jack was moved from the exterior spare tire well to a compartment behind the passenger seat. 93 would be the last year cloth seats were available. Power seat controls were moved from the seats themselves to a center console location just above the center glove box. Convertible rear windows were changed from plastic to glass and included a rear defogger. Air conditioning systems are revised to use the new R134A refrigerant. New sport seats are redesigned and wider than earlier generations. 1995, production was 20,742, of which 4,971 are convertibles. Fender panels behind the front wheels changed style again. Seat belts were changed to all plastic, no longer the metal seat belt that got hot sitting in the sun. The LT1 OptiSpark, or optical distributor, was found to be very susceptible to failure due to moisture, so for 95 it was redesigned, making it ventilated. A readout for automatic transmission fluid temperature was added to the display. Stronger radio mount was added to reduce skipping when listening to a CD. Velcro straps were added around the vehicle to reduce rattles in the interior. A drip tube was added to the A-pillar weather stripping to reduce water leaks into the interior. Additional refinements to the LT1 included new fuel injectors to handle alcohol-based fuels, and the engine fan was redesigned for quieter operation. Clutch controls in the automatic transmission were improved for smoother shifting. A larger brake package became standard. It used to be only included with the Z07 adjustable suspension package. Windshield wiper arms were redesigned to increase contact force to the windshield and reduce the chatter that was created at high speeds. 1996 marks the final year of production for the C4 Generation Corvette. A total of 21,536 were built, of which 4,369 were convertibles. The LT4 engine option becomes available, but only for cars with a manual transmission. It makes 330 horsepower and had a higher redline of 6,300 RPMs instead of the LT1's 5,700. The published figures were 330 horsepower, but several dyno tests showed the engine made more like 365 to 375 when it was new. The Grand Sport was added to the lineup. It only came in the LT4 with the manual in Admiral Blue with a white stripe. The Grand Sport had the 5-spoke ZR1 style wheels, the A mold style, in black. A 96 Collector's Edition was also introduced. They only came in Sebring silver. It also came with the 5-spoke ZR1 wheels painted silver. An electronic selective ride time damping system replaces the selective ride and handling option that appeared on previous generations. This was an improved system that could control each shock absorber individually. 96 brings the new OBD2 connection for diagnostics. The interior is an identical carryover from the 95 models. And that concludes my breakdown of all the major changes that the C4 Generation Corvette went through during its lifespan from 1984 to 1996. If you're a C4 owner, did I miss something that I should have included? Drop me a comment below and let me know what you think. My name is Tom Stroup. You've been watching Find the Right Road. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. Thanks, and we'll catch you next time.